Devereaux E. Mallarmé was a Parisian filmmaker who had struggled to find success in the States. He lived in Hoosick Falls, New York, and made silent films of bodybuilders. These exhibited frequently at county fairs and carnivals. There is a good chance Angus Duquette would have seen his work, but never known its creator. Devereaux had a second career as a veterinarian and treated his beloved pets as family. There was his dog Gustave, his cat Cousteau, his cow Periwinkle, his penguin Orson, and his chimpanzee Fred Sims, who also doubled as his trusty camera operator. Devereaux had heard the story of Angus's killing spree, but was even more disturbed by the unfounded reports that Angus had been traveling with a pack of lions. He loathed the thought of animal cruelty and detested the man all the more for it. But it wasn't until a stray bird flew to his window one night that Devereaux would soon find himself on a direct course to Angus. After translating the bird's squawks, Devereaux learned that it had flown all the way from Silent Creek and was seeking someone to alert the authorities of the dark tides that would be coming. Instead of acting upon this frantic request, Devereaux ignored it, realizing he had been given the story of the lifetime and he wasn't going to waste it. At long last, Devereaux was going to make a real film of great importance. He was going to document whatever cataclysmic event took place at Silent Creek and make cinematic history. The next morning, Devereaux said goodbye to his animals, leaving them under the care of Fred Sims. He packed up his car and set out alone on a journey to the Mojave Desert, navigating this journey by way of the sun and the bird's sketchy directions. On a chilly morning in April 1949, Fanny Wilcox awoke to the sound of her sister Mabel's voice, speaking in clipped, broken sentences, a sound she had not heard in years. Mabel had miraculously regained the ability to talk. As is theorized, one of the mysterious micro-events that had occurred the day prior as a byproduct of the Erendu's ongoing maturation had created a hole in this dimension, allowing Mabel's soul, which had been trapped in her doll since her caretaker Agatha Carruthers' suicide curse went horribly wrong, to find its way back to her body. Fanny and Mabel rejoiced after being made whole once again. However, the happiness would be short-lived, for Fanny had a sudden flash of horrible eyes. This, amid other visions denoting impending death and destruction. Fanny knew something was terribly wrong. When the sisters heard an awful cackling sound coming from the basement, Fanny realized she had misinterpreted her recent fever dream involving stairs. Instead of ascending to heaven, she was meant to do just the reverse. She and her newly returned sister crept down the chapel stairs together into the depths of the basement. That's when they found the witch, Agatha Carruthers, awaiting them. Agatha attacked the sisters in a vicious assault. Up above, Angus Duquette had climbed the scaffolding on the side of the lighthouse machine and was trying to harness the untamed power the Erendu had been generating and channel it into himself. An electrical storm began. Angus was unable to control the massive amount of energy now flowing through the air. He was struck by lightning and fell from the great height. Angus picked himself up, realizing that he needed to return to the basement, bring out one of the Erendu, and try again. But with all the chaos caused by the electromagnetic storm, a fire had started and the property was now in flames. Down in the chapel basement, Fanny and Mabel used this momentary distraction to overpower Agatha and tie her to a support beam. It's at this point where details become murky. It is said that as the sisters were making an escape, Angus appeared, forcing them back downstairs at knife point. Angus then called for the Erendu to come to him. Still not fully developed, however, the Erendu believed Angus posed a threat. They flew out from the walls where they were hiding and overwhelmed him, devouring his flesh from bone. As Angus's life flickered, he realized the full extent of their betrayal. The Erendu had made false promises of a magnificent power that was meant for them and only them. Angus died on the cold floor, knowing he was nothing more than a servant for their bidding. And now he was no longer needed. The Erendu were about to turn their sights on Fanny and Mabel when a shot rang out, blasting the small alien creatures to hell. It was Thaddeus. He had serendipitously awoken from his drug-induced catatonic state the day before at the moment when the micro-event had quietly rippled through Silent Creek. He grabbed hold of his wife Fanny and her sister Mabel, and the three of them fled the fiery grounds, not looking back as Agatha burned alive as would a witch burning at the stake. The blaze lasted through the night, destroying the entire Silent Creek ranch. In the coming months and years, little would be found in the wreckage. The ranch, the chapel, and the lighthouse machine had completely burned to ash. The only artifacts that would ever be uncovered would be 3 mysterious skeletons in the chapel basement. It is believed that Angus Duquette and Agatha Carruthers were 2 of these skeletons, but the remains of the 3rd has caused frequent speculation and debate. It wasn't until years later that an anthropologist would interview Fred Sims and learn of Devereaux E. Mallarmé's doomed mission to Silent Creek. What can only be inferred is that at some point while Thaddeus, Fanny, and Mabel were making their escape, Devereaux E. Mallarmé had descended into the basement of the burning chapel with camera in hand, only to find he had arrived at the worst possible time. This unassuming and little-known Parisian documentary filmmaker became trapped in the blaze and died alongside 2 terrible monsters. He would be all but forgotten by history outside his beloved animals. With the death of the Erendu, time and reality were in a state of erratic flux for days. This caused many people to immediately forget the name of the notorious Angus Duquette, also known as the clown with no paint on his face. The horrific events of the Carnival Massacre becoming a minor blip in history with no explanation. The majority of the world would also never know the truth of Silent Creek nor the story of the Wilcox family. The whereabouts of the latter a genuine mystery to most. That is until 1965, when Fanny Wilcox resurfaced with a mysterious illness thought to be tuberculosis for the 3rd and final time in her life. Now on her deathbed, in a moment of epiphany, Fanny came to realize that the Erendu had chosen her, not her husband Thaddeus, to ensure the survival of their species. Not bound to the ordinary rules of time and reality, they had existed as a time-traveling germ, caught in a loop between her childhood affliction and the disaster at Silent Creek. After failing each time to survive the 1949 fire, they always returned back to the past to reinfect Fanny as a child with the fever dreams that would later inspire the lighthouse machine, which would open the gateway to planet Erendu. But their mission to reach their final form on Earth was unsuccessful in every reality. Now, having infected Fanny at the end of her life, she knew that something had changed. Instead of reverting to the past, Fanny warned her nurses that the Erendu were now looking to the future. She didn't know when they would fully return, but she knew it was only a matter of time. To this day, the Erendu have yet to make their second coming. One can either accept Fanny's account as the ramblings of a woman losing her mind, or a premonitory warning of the end times. Fanny died peacefully in her sleep hours after recounting her story to me. I would not have believed a word she said had I not already heard bits and pieces of the same story many years ago in Mexico from her husband Thaddeus, who I initially had written off as an eccentric teller of tall tales. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but now I had learned the full picture. Fanny's soul then floated freely, making its final journey into the unknowable.